At midnight, Rikudo watched the students chatting from the top of a building. He only wanted to end this foolish game. A man who had once beaten him shouted that Rikudo had failed to clean again, pointing out the mess on the floor. Rikudo looked at him. The man grew angry and demanded how he dared stare back. Then he kicked him. He reminded Rikudo that cleaning was his job since they had raised him after his parents died. A woman watching smiled cruelly, saying it was no surprise considering the kind of parents he had. They were awful adoptive parents. Opening the door to another room, Rikudo found a boy who took the blame for the mess. The boy then deliberately spilled soda on the floor. He claimed this was Rikudo's responsibility. Approaching the already battered Rikudo, the boy mocked him, pretending to be kind while teasing him further. When Rikudo arrived at school, his desk was covered in scribbles with a vase of flowers on it. Students laughed and whispered behind his back. The teacher, seeing the desk, began scolding him and asking what he had done. Later in the hallway, 3 classmates shoved him against the lockers, insulted him, and demanded that he pay them 2,000 yen every day. Rikudo clenched his fists but could not fight back. One boy kicked him in the stomach. Then he punched him in the face. As the beating went on, they called him pathetic and told him to ask his parents for money. While being hit, Rikudo thought that life was trash and everyone in it was trash, but he was worse than all of them. When they finally stopped, his phone fell to the ground. One bully stepped on it, cracking the screen. He then mocked him with a fake apology. As Rikudo lowered his head, the bully lifted his leg to stomp again. But someone stopped him. It was Nishi, the star of the school's Western-style archery team and recent winner of the national tournament. Students were shocked and the girls were charmed, even commenting on how admirable it was that he was helping someone like Rikudo. Nishi gripped the bully's shoulder until it hurt. Another boy grabbed a baseball bat to attack him, but Nishi punched him before he could swing. With the attacker on the ground, Nishi said it was unpleasant to see things like this. He ordered them to leave. The bullies left muttering. Nishi crouched beside Rikudo and asked if he was still alive. He told him to fight back, explaining they only acted that way because Rikudo did nothing. He questioned how Rikudo could call this living. Rikudo turned his back, asking what Nishi could possibly know. Nishi was surprised that Rikudo could still stand after such a beating. He wondered if he had taken less damage than it seemed. Perhaps he had dodged blows at the last second. Then he dismissed the idea, thinking this wasn't a movie. Back in the present, Rikudo sat on the rooftop, watching students laugh and play below. He stared at his broken phone, feeling both sad and angry. Looking up, he thought it was all over, that he was tired of living with this pain. He climbed the fence and reached the edge. He spread his arms, ready to end it. But lightning suddenly lit up the sky. Circles appeared within the bolts, and streams of binary code descended toward the city, destroying buildings. Phones began making strange noises, frightening their owners. They dropped them. Rikudo was confused. It had been clear weather a moment ago. Looking at the students, he saw one of them scream as their phone displayed binary code. The code formed a bubble that grew larger. It eventually became a terrifying monster. Soon, dragons, goblins, and other beasts emerged from every student's phone and began chasing them. From the rooftop, Rikudo heard cries for help. He saw students being attacked one by one. He could not understand what was happening as hordes of monsters filled the school grounds. All over the world, society collapsed in an instant. It was believed that less than 1/10 of the global population remained. The cause was unknown until a group of young people discovered the truth. The monsters came from people's smartphones. In the world that followed, survivors called it the Day of Judgment. Sitting on the school rooftop railing, Rikudo wondered if it was true. Were monsters from fantasy worlds suddenly wiping out humanity? Smiling, he thought he had finally put an end to it. Below, people screamed for help as they were attacked. He felt satisfied, thinking that those who had insulted or mocked him deserved it. Still smiling, Rikudo wondered how this dream felt so real, even involving people he did not know. He questioned why it was lasting so long. His life had been miserable, his parents gone, everyone around him cruel, even his brother. He told himself none of it mattered. Yet he admitted it was still wrong for people to end up like this. Lost in thought, he heard the terrace door open. A goblin entered carrying a severed head. In that instant, he realized it was not a dream, this was real. The goblin lunged at him with its weapon, and he fell from the railing to the terrace floor. Terrified, he saw the head again and thought it was the end. Part of him did not care, he had already planned to end his life. Life was trash and the world was nothing. But now, he realized he did not want to die like this. He did not want it to end at all. Grabbing an iron bar, he blocked the goblin's attack. The monster knocked him down, but he thought about how pathetic and meaningless real death was. That only made him resist harder. Shouting that he did not want to die, he fought back. Humans sometimes enter a state known as the zone, where concentration reaches its peak and both body and mind move with perfect control. In that moment, Rikudo struck the goblin between the legs, knocking it down. In the zone, a person can see the world clearly and act instinctively in the best way possible. With the goblin on the ground, Rikudo struck it again with the iron bar. Rikudo stared at the fallen goblin, shocked at what he had done. He vomited. Then he screamed in despair. For the first time, he truly felt he wanted to live. He awoke to someone asking how he was. It was Nishi, who smiled and said Rikudo's bleeding head had worried him. Recognizing the archer, Rikudo stood, but Nishi told him not to overdo it. Looking through the fence, Rikudo saw the city in flames. Some students sat nearby, pale and frightened. They included Takeda, Tani, and Arata, the bullies who had attacked him. Sakura said the situation was impossible. The PA teacher, with his arm around her, told her he would protect her. Other girls whispered about him. They said he was looking at her in a disturbing way. Rikudo noticed a pile of objects. Nishi explained they had built a barricade from whatever they could find to keep the monsters away. Survivors had fled to the rooftop, setting it up. From the other side of the barricade, voices pleaded for help. But the PA teacher and another student refused to open it. Soon all they could hear were screams. Nishi admitted feeling guilty for not opening the barricade, but he believed they would have died if he had. Rikudo told him it was not his fault. No one wanted to meet such an end, and that he had done everything to survive. Looking at the dead goblin, Nishi asked if Rikudo had killed it. He said he had never considered trying such a thing himself, and thought that with that determination, he might have saved the others. Then screams drew their attention. The PA teacher told everyone to check the situation with the monsters and the phones. Sakura showed her phone, which no longer worked. Another student confirmed theirs was also dead. Rikudo's was still broken. The teacher realized they could not call for help. Rikudo wondered aloud why no monster had come from his phone, perhaps because it was broken. The PA teacher suggested they stay put and wait for rescue from the police or defense forces. Rikudo questioned this, pointing out that if monsters had come from phones, they were likely everywhere, not just in the school. With phones so common, especially in Japan, the whole world was probably in the same state. He doubted any rescue forces were still operational. Students began to panic. Nishi asked if they should look for a safer place. Rikudo said they should, unless they wanted to end up like the others. Tani suddenly stood and shouted, asking why someone as pathetic as Rikudo was giving orders. He grabbed Rikudo by the collar, saying he needed to be taught a lesson. Rikudo did not respond, just stared at him, making the bully uneasy. Rikudo wondered what had happened to make this boy talk such nonsense. The other students agreed with Takeda and began insulting Rikudo. Nishi and Sakura tried to calm the crowd. Takeda mocked Rikudo, asking if he was too scared to speak. But Rikudo only thought about how small and harmless the bully seemed compared to the monster lying on the ground. Trying to provoke him further, Takeda demanded something from Rikudo. Rikudo replied that he should stop bothering him with meaningless things because it was annoying. Everyone was stunned. Cursing, Takeda tried to punch him, but Rikudo grabbed his arm, caught him by the neck, and slammed him to the ground. The crowd was shocked by this sudden reaction. Pinned to the ground, Takeda complained about the pain and begged to be released, calling the situation absurd and wondering how he had ever feared someone like this. He then started hurling insults and threats. But Rikudo pressed him harder against the floor. Nishi grabbed Rikudo's arm to stop him, worried he would seriously injure Takeda. He wondered if this was really the same person who had once been bullied so easily. Students whispered in disbelief. Once Takeda stood up, he kept cursing. But Nishi angrily told him this was not the time for fights, forcing him to back down. Nishi told Rikudo to let it go, and Rikudo agreed. Facing the group, Rikudo said what mattered now was deciding their next move, not wasting time on petty fights. The bully continued his insults. Then the teacher interrupted, asking if they could return to the discussion. Nishi explained that the rooftop had nothing useful, and rescue might never come. They needed a safe location, food, and water. Rikudo added that weapons would be necessary if possible. Sakura asked if such a place existed, and Nishi admitted that was the real problem. Rikudo suggested they first check inside the school to see if it was even possible to travel. One student objected, saying it was too dangerous and that monsters could be nearby. The teacher agreed they should at least check the hallway. But the students refused, asking who would risk walking among monsters. The teacher called on Rikudo and Takeda to go check. Takeda protested, saying the teacher should set an example, but the teacher insisted he needed to stay and protect the students. Some of the girls agreed and told the boys to go, which made Takeda lash out at them. Rikudo picked up the iron pipe he had used to kill the monster and moved toward the barricade. A frightened student asked if he was serious. Rikudo replied that staying there would only lead to starvation or being eaten. They had no choice but to move. Encouraged, Nishi grabbed his gear and said he would go too, hoping to find other survivors. The PE teacher warned that if anything happened to them, it would be their responsibility. The girls shouted for them not to go because it was dangerous. Rikudo called the teacher a hypocrite and remarked that he was glad Nishi was coming, since the chihuahua clearly was. Takeda froze in confusion at the nickname, trembling like a small dog. Rikudo asked if Nishi was sure, reminding him that this was a dangerous mission with a high chance of being attacked. Nishi smiled and said he had a reason to survive. He recalled the image of a girl at a window. Rikudo told him he seemed dependable. Nishi replied that Rikudo must be as reckless as he was. Realizing they did not even know each other's names, they introduced themselves and shared a few jokes. Then they passed through the barricade together. Rikudo and Nishi walked through a corridor littered with bodies. Nishi said it felt like a nightmare, but Rikudo replied that this was reality. Nishi wondered where the monsters had gone, though he wasn't complaining. Rikudo guessed they had left the school to hunt elsewhere, since there weren't many people here. Nishi admitted it made sense but found it grim to hear. Partway through their conversation, they both heard a slapping sound from a distant hallway. They moved cautiously to the edge. Nishi peeked around the corner and saw a lone goblin. They silently agreed they could handle it. Nishi took out his bow. He aimed carefully. Then he shot the goblin in the back, the arrow piercing its chest. The resilient creature didn't fall. It turned and spotted him. Then it charged with frightening speed. Before it could reach Nishi, Rikudo intercepted it, smashing its head with the iron pipe and knocking it down. The goblin tried to recover, but Rikudo stepped in front of it and struck repeatedly until it stopped moving. Nishi approached, commenting on Rikudo's brutality. He scanned the area and confirmed there were no more monsters nearby. Rikudo said some creatures, like the dragons he had seen earlier, were beyond human ability to fight. Nishi agreed and noted how much these monsters resembled ones from video games, pointing out the goblin they had just defeated. Rikudo admitted he felt he had seen them somewhere before. Nishi began trembling at the thought that a single hit could have killed him. He clenched his fist, saying that unlike games, this was real life. No leveling up, no cheats, no magic, only ordinary humans. He told Rikudo he clearly wasn't a beginner and asked if he had training. Rikudo remembered training with his brother in one-on-one fights, but he said he had never been trained. Nishi asked why he had let bullies push him around despite his skills, but Rikudo said he didn't really know. They moved on, passing a corridor with several bodies inside. Then they headed for the stairs. Rikudo reminded Nishi of their mission to assess the situation. Nishi added that they needed to count survivors and find escape routes. The most important thing, Rikudo said, was to return alive with information, and in danger it was acceptable for anyone to save themselves. Nishi joked that Rikudo was trying too hard to act tough. Before they could continue, a cry for help echoed from the floor below. Rikudo froze. Then he bolted down the stairs. Nishi followed, thinking he now knew the kind of person Rikudo really was, someone who would never abandon others. On the lower floor, they saw a monster walking around. It carried a massive iron club, looked like a goblin but was larger and had horns. Takebana was hiding in a cabinet, trying not to make a sound. Through a small gap, she saw goblins stripping her classmates while they cried for help. She wanted to help but couldn't move. One classmate begged the goblin to stop, but it went into a frenzy and attacked her. Takebana shut her eyes and covered her ears, falling into panic and apologizing to herself for always doing nothing and running away. She remembered watching Rikudo being beaten by bullies in the past, thinking she should intervene. Trembling, she had tried to speak up, but before she could, the blonde-haired bully kicked Rikudo in the face. She apologized again in her mind. Then she recalled Seidu putting a hand on her shoulder and telling her class was about to start. Barely reacting, she was pulled away, leaving Rikudo on the ground. Takebana awoke inside the cabinet, realizing she had fainted from the stress. She panicked, wondering what had happened to the others and how long she had been there. Reaching for her phone, she accidentally dropped it. The clatter echoed through the rooms. The noises outside grew louder, then went silent. Anxious and trembling, she wondered if the goblins had noticed her. The cabinet doors suddenly swung open. She saw the room filled with bodies, her friend Misaki among them. A goblin grabbed her by the hair and yanked her out. It started to tear her clothes as she screamed for help. Another monster appeared and struck the goblin with a single blow, killing it instantly. The remaining goblins surrounded this new creature, but it destroyed them all in one attack. Still in shock, Takebana screamed as loudly as she could for someone to save her. Upstairs, Rikudo and Nishi heard her voice and began running toward the sound. The large monster held the girl in one hand. It dragged the tied-up bodies of goblins through a corridor. She apologized and begged to be released. But the creature became angry and slammed her against the wall, knocking her unconscious. From a distance, Rikudo and Nishi watched. Nishi grew uneasy, doubting his arrows could harm something like that. Rikudo said his instincts told him exactly what this monster was. He asked Nishi if he had found it strange that the previous floor had so few monsters. The reason, he explained, was that this creature was a predator that hunted goblins. It was stronger, more territorial, and far higher in the food chain. Facing it alone would be hopeless. Nishi, concerned for the girl, froze when he saw Rikudo preparing to move toward the monster. He asked what Rikudo was doing. Rikudo replied that he was going to save her because she was still alive. Nishi warned him that doing so was suicide. He questioned whether Rikudo was acting out of self-satisfaction or some misguided sense of justice, risking his life without thinking clearly. Rikudo reminded him of when Nishi had asked if he felt alive. He said that facing death at the hands of this monster made him realize he wanted to live, and that he would never let himself fall that way again. Saving the girl, he said, was something he wanted to do because it proved he was alive. Nishi thought this was madness and asked if dying foolishly like this was what Rikudo considered living. Rikudo told him he didn't need to come along, it was his own problem. In his mind, he recalled his brother Serrano calling him incompetent, penniless, and alone, claiming he was already dead and should act like it. Rikudo felt pity for that memory, but vowed never to live as if he were already dead again, even if it destroyed him. Nishi stopped him, gripping his shoulder. He revealed he had a younger sister, not related by blood, who studied at another school. He said he did not want to die either, because then she would be left alone. Leaving the girl now, he explained, would be shameful, and if his sister were in danger, he would have to help her. Running away with excuses would haunt him forever. That was why he would help Rikudo face the monster and rescue the girl. Rikudo commented that the two of them were about to do something reckless for selfish reasons, and asked if Nishi was fine with that. Nishi answered that a man needed to keep his pride. With that, they began plannings. Nishi asked how they would approach the fight, since charging in directly was too dangerous. Rikudo said he had an idea, but it would require Nishi to fight as well. They began working out the details. Meanwhile, the girl awoke. She found herself tied to a wooden plank alongside several goblins. The monster was roasting them over a fire like skewers. While eating, the creature noticed she was awake. Terrified, she screamed. Thanks to the sound, the two young men realized where to look for her. As they ran, Nishi remarked that after hearing Rikudo's plan, he was convinced his companion was completely out of his mind. The girl, in despair, thought she would never make it out alive and would be burned and eaten. Crying, she repeated to herself that she did not want to die. The monster noticed she was moving again and came closer. Knocking her down, it picked up the wooden plank to which she was tied. Then it began carrying her toward the flames. Just then, she saw Rikudo at the doorway telling her to shut her eyes. The monster dropped the plank. It reached for its iron club as it approached him. Rikudo pulled out a fire extinguisher. He sprayed it into the monster's face, blinding it temporarily. While it was distracted, Rikudo rushed to the girl. He began untying her. She called his name, but he said he did not know her and was only helping. In her mind, she thought it was obvious he didn't remember her and wondered why he would. When his knife failed to cut the ropes, Rikudo switched to his backup plan. He banged his iron pipe against the floor, a signal for Nishi. The archer realized with disbelief that they were moving ahead with the crazy plan. Coming closer, Nishi admitted he wasn't confident but would try his best, and asked not to be blamed if he failed. The monster, regaining its senses, saw Rikudo standing in front of the girl. It roared so loudly that it shattered the windows. Rikudo lifted the pipe as the creature raised its club. He knew one wrong move would end everything. Watching its attack pattern closely, he used a technique called Kiriatoshi to parry and redirect the strike to the side. He was both surprised and relieved it worked, thinking it had been a long time since he used that skill, but his muscle memory hadn't failed him. Rikudo stood, metal bar in hand, facing the demon-like monster. It swung at him suddenly, but he managed to defend himself. He shifted the angle of its blows instead of meeting them head-on, reducing the impact while countering with minimal force. Aiming low, he struck at its feet. It was a modern kendo technique, one his father had taught him long ago. Silently, Rikudo thanked his father for those lessons. The girl watched, thinking the fight was incredible. Rikudo reminded himself to stay calm. These were monsters without refined technique. The demon prepared another strike and swung at him with great force. Rikudo blocked, but the creature attacked relentlessly. Seeing an opening, he landed a precise hit on its wrist, and noted that it relied entirely on brute force. Their fight grew more intense. The monster swung again with its spiked club, but its movements were wide and predictable. Rikudo managed to land a blow to its head, though he admitted it would have been easier against a human opponent. The monster staggered, screaming in pain. The girl was amazed he could withstand its attacks. Rikudo was starting to tire. Even though he defended himself well, the repeated impacts were wearing him down. He knew he could not keep this up for long. The monster regained focus, and Rikudo realized his best efforts weren't enough to overpower it. Deciding to fight defensively, he dodged while studying its movements. A frontal assault was impossible. He resolved to lure it for one final strike. From a distance, he shouted to get its attention. Smoke began to pour from its ears, a sign it was preparing another attack. The demon's gaze shifted to the girl still tied to the plank. It lifted the wooden log she was bound to and advanced, using her as a weapon. She screamed as Rikudo realized how dangerous this had become. The monster swung the log violently. Outside, the sounds of battle echoed, furniture breaking, walls cracking. Rikudo dodged, keeping just ahead of its wild swings. He managed to escape the deadly arc of the weapon. The girl, left for a moment, felt a pang of hurt at being abandoned. Her mind flashed back to childhood, two boys bullying her as she cried in a corner. Someone had stepped in to defend her. It was Rikudo, asking why they were picking on her. In the present, she thought he had always been this way, risking himself for others. She cried, still tied to the log. Nishi, watching from outside the fight, said he was about to jump in. Seeing Rikudo holding his own, he was impressed, though he believed Rikudo was close to his limit. He told him to keep the monster busy for about 10 more meters. Quickening his pace, he approached the scene with a dark, determined look, saying he would end this. Rikudo kept running, drawing the monster along. At one moment, he turned and swung his iron bar with all his strength. But his grip failed, and the demon's counterattack landed squarely, sending Rikudo flying. Rikudo lay injured on the ground, unable to move, while Takebana watched in horror. Nishi, who had come to help, also saw what had happened. Shouts for Rikudo's name echoed from all around. Nishi studied the situation, realizing it was dire. He remembered his friend's instructions. He would have only one chance to shoot at a single specific point, and if he missed, Rikudo would die. The angle, the distance, and the overall setup were far from ideal, but there was no more time to prepare. He waited, hoping the monster would step closer and turn just enough for a perfect shot. Rikudo, still on the ground, called out to him not to shoot yet. Nishi was confused. Rikudo insisted he needed the monster a few meters closer and told him to wait. Summoning what strength he had, he forced himself to his feet and faced the demon again. From the shadows, the hidden boy watched, while Takebana, still tied to the wooden plank, cried out Rikudo's name. The monster approached, and Rikudo coughed, hunching forward as though about to collapse. Suddenly, he dropped to his knees. Believing the fight was over, the demon's eyes began to glow, releasing bolts of lightning. Rikudo pushed himself upright once more, raising his iron bar to block. His legs trembled, and he wondered if he could keep luring the monster closer. The demon roared in fury, shaking the walls. Takebana begged him to run, convinced the creature would kill him. He told her not to worry about him. She shouted back that she did not deserve to be saved, admitting she had abandoned him before. In her mind, she relived a memory from school, watching Rikudo being beaten by bullies. She had thought about helping, even started to run toward them, but someone grabbed her shoulder and stopped her. It was a boy named Seidu, who told her not to get involved and simply follow what they had agreed. She had obeyed, walking away while Rikudo was still on the ground. In the present, she said she had always been a coward, tired of standing by and doing nothing. The monster attacked again, its roars rising to a fever pitch. Rikudo noticed its weapon had lost momentum, saw an opening and struck. But the demon's counter came faster, sending Rikudo flying and leaving him injured. Takebana, still bound to the plank, was also thrown, hitting the ground hard. The demon closed in on Rikudo as he lay weak and motionless. In a faint voice, he signaled to Nishi that the target was now at the right distance. Nishi was already in position with his bow. He checked the angle one last time and promised himself he would not miss. The monster noticed him, shifting its attention away from Rikudo. Acting quickly, Nishi released the arrow. It flew straight into the demon's eye. 10 minutes earlier, Rikudo had handed Nishi a vial and told him to use it. Nishi recognized it as the same one Sakura had given them before entering the building, a container of pure ethanol meant for chemistry experiments. They remembered the blonde girl telling them it would come in handy. Inside the building, Rikudo explained his plan. Nishi was to coat the arrow in alcohol and shoot it into the demon's bloodstream. Even a small amount, he reasoned, would be enough to disable it. Nishi found the idea logical, but pointed out the arrow would not pierce the creature's thick skin. Rikudo replied that the target was the eye, a vulnerable spot. To confirm, he would spray the monster's face with a fire extinguisher. If it tried to protect its eyes, that would prove they were just as fragile as a human's. Rikudo would start the fight, Nishi would finish it. In the present, the arrow struck true. The demon roared in pains. Nishi celebrated, joking that he had hit the exact center of the target. The monster tore the arrow from its eye and charged at them. But it staggered as the alcohol began taking effect. With a final roar, it swung its weapon at Rikudo, disorienting him. Nishi realized the poison would not kill instantly. The demon pushed forward, smashing through walls and shattering glass. Rikudo saw it heading for a hole in the wall, and using the last of his strength, he grabbed it around the waist, trying to force it out. It was heavier than expected. Above him, the demon raised its weapon. Nishi ran in and also grabbed the monster. Together, they shoved it through the hole. The demon fell, dragging Rikudo with it. They plummeted, but Nishi managed to catch Rikudo midair, pulling him to safety. The demon hit the ground below, cracking the floor and breaking its horns. Takebana watched, relief flooding her face when she saw both were alive. Rikudo called out to Nishi, asking if he was crazy. Nishi, satisfied with saving his friend, grinned and brought up his first-place win at the national tournament. Rikudo laughed, thinking he was still disconnected from reality. Takebana, still tied, asked to be freed. Using a sharp rock, the boys cut her loose. Nishi asked if she was all right, but before he could finish, she walked past him. She hugged Rikudo, thanking him for saving her. Watching, Nishi teased Rikudo about risking everything for his girlfriend. Both Rikudo and Takebana were caught off guard. Nishi kept joking. Then Takebana explained they were not a couple. Confused, Rikudo asked who she was. Surprised, Takebana said her name Katon Takebana, and reminded him they had gone to the same school. She said they used to call each other by nicknames. Hearing it, Rikudo's eyes widened as he remembered. Flashbacks came to him. Takebana was someone he had wanted to protect, a battle he could not lose. He saw himself shoving a boy away from her. Then came the memory of the traffic accident, brakes failing, two bodies lying in the rain, himself crying over them. He remembered Seidu's cunning nature and how others had stolen everything from him. Somewhere during those events, he had died inside. Back in the present, Rikudo trembled, feeling unwell. Takebana panicked, but he assured her he was fine. Nishi disagreed. Rikudo said he now remembered who she was, but admitted he had forgotten they were from the same school. Takebana apologized for not speaking to him sooner, but he said it had been the right choice. Getting involved in his bullying would have helped no one. Nishi reminded them that the sun would set soon and asked Takebana if she would join them. She agreed. The trio moved through the school. Takebana paused to pray for a boy who had died. Nishi caught a small lizard that spat fire. They noticed the building was now quiet, no monsters in sight. Rikudo warned that smaller creatures might appear now that the larger one was gone. They secured the fire doors and blocked the route to the second floor. Finally, they headed to the rooftop, where 4 survivors were waiting. The group cheered their return, calling them Nishi's patrol. The PE teacher ran to Nishi, saying he had never lost faith in him. Another ran to Takebana, hugging her. It was Seidu, thanking the heavens she was alive. When Takebana called out Rikudo's name, Nishi noticed something unusual in the air. Nishi asked if the newcomer was someone Takebana knew. The boy quickly introduced himself as Seidu Shinjiro, Takebana's boyfriend. Sakura looked intrigued, while Takebana grew embarrassed. Seidu reassured her, saying their parents approved of their relationship and that he was proud they had both survived. He thanked Nishi for saving Takebana, but Nishi corrected him, saying Rikudo was the one who actually rescued her. Sakura was surprised to hear it, and listened closely as the rooftop group continued their conversation. Seidu remarked that Nishi had said Rikudo easily defeated Taketa earlier, and asked if it was really the same person. A flashback showed Rikudo being grabbed by the collar and mocked by bullies. Seidu thanked him for saving Takebana, saying she had caused him many problems. Rikudo said it was no trouble. Seidu assured him that everything would be fine now, as he would protect her from here on. He asked Rikudo to leave Takebana in his care. Seidu then took Takebana aside, telling her to rest, but she insisted she had something to say to Rikudo. Meanwhile, they thanked Sakura for the ethanol she had given them, saying it had saved their lives. The archer added that the alcohol had worked because of the monster's biology, from oxygen content to its circulatory system. Nishi asked why she had such a container in the first place. But before she could answer, Yama-sensei interrupted, asking Rikudo to explain everything that had happened. After hearing the story, the group agreed the situation was still dangerous. Nishi reported that they had found no other survivors besides Takebana, which was a bad sign. The teacher said the lower floors were secure thanks to closed fire doors and could serve as sleeping areas. Yama ordered everyone to gather supplies and set up a proper base, saying he would lead the effort. The students began organizing the shelter, each helping in some way. Rikudo was seen carrying bodies of the dead by himself. Takebana said it was cruel of Yama to make him do it alone. But Rikudo answered that someone had to remove the corpses before they decomposed. She asked what he planned to do with them. He admitted it would be difficult to bury them all. He decided to take them to the rooftop, where they might find another way to dispose of them. Takebana agreed to help. As Rikudo carried the bag of bodies, he recognized one as a former bully. He thought about how both the bullies and the negligent teachers deserved to die. If everyone like that were gone, maybe he could laugh again. But he realized he had not been able to laugh since everything had happened, and perhaps this was some kind of punishment. Takebana called him a hero both now and in the past. Surprised, Rikudo asked if she was sure she wanted to help, warning it was a disturbing task. She insisted it was something she could not turn away from. They continued together until someone called out to Rikudo. When he turned, Seidou attacked him. Takebana was startled as her boyfriend, furious, demanded to know what Rikudo was doing with her. Grabbing Takebana's arm, Seidou said she had no need to help with such a disgusting job. Rikudo lay on the ground, confused. Seidou mocked him, claiming Rikudo was trying to make Takebana do his dirty work, and said he should be ashamed. Takebana defended her friend, saying she had offered to help on her own. Seidou claimed she had been pressured because Rikudo had rescued her. Takebana demanded to know what he meant. But Seidou ignored the question and said he would tell everyone what happened. Rikudo stayed silent, still unsure what was going on. Takebana asked why her boyfriend was treating her friend so badly, but Seidou told her to be quiet. Rikudo told him he didn't care and could do as he pleased. Unable to provoke him, Seidou laughed nervously, saying Rikudo was good at bluffing even when on the verge of snapping. He pulled Takebana by the arm, saying she had no reason to be there. At that moment, Takebana pulled free, surprising everyone. She said she had endured enough. She admitted she had stayed polite because of her parents' social standing, but she could not take it anymore. Seidou said he thought they would be together forever. Takebana began crying. Rikudo told them to take their argument elsewhere so he could keep working. But Seidou told him to stay out of it. Takebana was shocked when Seidou spoke about protecting her, reminding him that he had once used her as a sacrifice to save himself. The truth came out in a flashback. When the monsters attacked, Takebana and Seidou had been in a hallway. She suggested they head to the rooftop, but on the way he tripped her and left her behind. She barely escaped by hiding in a locker. In the present, Takebana said she could no longer trust him and wished they had never been together. She told him to forget her forever. Seidou, ignoring this, asked if she had feelings for Rikudo. He began to laugh, which worried Takebana. When she questioned him, he told her to be quiet and raised his hand to hit her. Before the blow landed, Rikudo caught his arm and calmly told them to let him work. Seidou remarked that Rikudo had always had a strange aura, even back when surrounded by thugs, and then asked why all the people who bullied him were now dead. Takebana told him he was going too far, but he scoffed. Rikudo asked him directly what the slander campaign against him was about. Seidou said it didn't matter and accused him of being dark. He tried to fight, but Rikudo refused, saying he would not harm a friend of Takebana's. Seidou lost his temper and attacked anyway. Seidou shouted at Rikudo to be quiet and attacked. With years of dojo training, Rikudo easily avoided the first punch and the following kick. Seidou realized that after facing a giant monster, nothing could shake him. His mental strength was immense. Another strike missed, and Seidou fell onto the bag of bodies, shocked to see a corpse inside. Rikudo mocked him, asking if he would help carry them. Enraged, Seidou grabbed a piece of wood. A loud sound drew everyone's attention. Nishi had arrived. Nishi asked what was happening. Rikudo said it was nothing, but Nishi disagreed. Sensing the tension, he asked Takebana if she was fine with it. Seidou brushed it off and left, walking past the archer. Nishi reflected on how Seidou excelled in both academics and sports, but was dangerously obsessed with Takebana. Rikudo asked why Nishi was there. Nishi said his work was done, so he had come to help, apologizing for leaving Rikudo to handle everything earlier. They exchanged a fist bump, and Takebana smiled at their friendship. They decided to take the bodies to the rooftop before discussing their next steps. Night eventually fell, and everyone gathered in the shelter. The teacher distributed a box of supplies, enough to last for a while. But many found Yama irritating. While Rikudo ate, Nishi said he was not hungry. Rikudo warned him that not eating would only make him weaker. Before more could be said, a scream rang out. It was Sakura, staring at her phone in confusion. She explained she had found a phone charger and tried to use it but failed. Nishi asked questions and learned the charger was still wrapped in its packaging, unused. They concluded that any phones the monsters had come from should be collected. Sakura was disappointed. She had hoped to get online for information. She wished she could use the internet. Tachibana asked if the internet would even work without power. Sakura replied that it would, because this was a model city for advanced development, and it did not need external electricity. Nishi admitted he didn't understand but wanted to learn more. Sakura then said if she had a phone, a monster wouldn't come from it. One of the boys produced a phone Rikudo. He explained it had been broken before the incident, so nothing had emerged from it. Nishi speculated that was the reason. Tachibana noted her phone was the same model. Their friend remarked it was an old type they used to own. Sakura wondered aloud if it could be repaired, saying she was beginning to see a glimmer of hope. At the school, Nishi warned that if things continued at their current pace, the situation would only get worse and the food supply would last only about 3 days. Rikudo added that their weapons were scarce, and his steel pipe was still better than most of what they had. Nishi summed up the problem by saying they were in serious trouble, but there was still hope. According to Kyuju, Rikudo's broken phone could be repaired using the right tools and parts from Tachibana's device. Sakura, forcing a smile, said she could probably fix it, though others looked at her with concern. Rikudo, with a hint of sarcasm, thanked Takeda for breaking his phone in the first place. The school bully yelled, asking what good fixing it would do. But Nishi replied that repairing the phone would allow them to use the internet to learn more about the situation, contact other survivors, and locate emergency shelters. The idea gave the students a glimmer of hope. Tachibana asked about the computers, and Sakura explained that, like the phones, they were all destroyed. Tachibana found that strange, but Nishi said the terminals had been damaged when the monsters appeared, even if the devices were turned off. Sakura ran her hands through her hair, saying the phenomenon was giving her a headache. Nishi stayed focused, saying only the phone that had already been broken before the incident could still connect to the internet. He stressed that their top priority was contacting other lucky survivors like Rikudo. Rikudo agreed. Then, holding his steel pipe, he asked Sakura if the best place to find tools was the general discount store. Sakura seemed uncertain but said it was a good option. 2 frightened girls joined in, urging everyone to go immediately for weapons and food. Sensei Yama shouted for them to stop, opposing the plan because it was too dangerous. Rikudo argued that if they didn't go, they would eventually succumb. The teacher insisted there was a chance of rescue before things got worse and reminded them there were monsters everywhere. Rikudo countered that the store was not far and if they went by car, the plan would work. He asked Yama to drive, but the teacher looked terrified. Nishi pressed the point, saying it was less dangerous than walking. Yama refused, insisting they stay put for their own good. Nishi thought the situation was a serious problem. At that moment, Tachibana stood and said she could drive. Surprised, Nishi asked how, and she explained her grandfather had let her drive his truck on the farm when she was younger. Her boyfriend tried to stop her, but she told him to stay out of it. Rikudo warned her that even in the car it might not be safe. But Tachibana said she didn't want to die without knowing what was really happening. Rikudo admired her determination and said they were counting on her. Her boyfriend grew angry. Yama slammed his fist into the chalkboard, shouting that he was in charge and they could not do whatever they wanted. Nishi tried to calm him, but the teacher told him to be quiet. Yama declared they should ration the food for a week and wait for rescue. Rikudo challenged him, saying there was no safe place. Blue slime suddenly dripped from the ceiling and landed on Tanny, who screamed for help as the monster began consuming him. Rikudo charged at it with his steel pipe, shouting that common sense didn't apply to these creatures and nowhere was safe. Rikudo warned that waiting would only make things worse. The students asked what the slime was as Rikudo fought it. Tanny screamed for help, and Rikudo told him to hold on while grabbing a large blanket. He called for Nishi, who quickly joined in. The students realized the slime could dissolve human flesh, but not synthetic fibers. Working together, they counted to 3. Then they threw the blanket over Tanny and pulled him free. Sakura nervously asked if they had removed the creature. Despite Rikudo's heavy blows, the slime was unharmed. He remembered that in games, slimes resisted physical attacks but were weak to magic. He decided they should try burning it. Nishi didn't know how to start a fire, but Sakura appeared with flammable liquid and poured it over the monster. Then she lit a match. There was an explosion and the slime evaporated. Rikudo noted that fire seemed to be its weakness and thanked her. Then he remembered Tanny, but Nishi said it was too late. Takeda knelt beside his friend's body, calling his name. Yama appeared confused. Rikudo demanded to know if he now understood the seriousness of their situation. He warned that staying and waiting for a rescue that might never come would doom them all. The teacher sank to the floor, saying he didn't understand anymore and that the students could do as they wished. Rikudo, Nishi, Sakura, and Takabana left the school, killing any monsters in their way. They reached Yama's car and gave Takabana the keys. She noticed it was not a manual, but said she could drive it anyway, even if she was more used to manual transmission. Sakura asked if she really had to go, but the archer reminded her she was the only one who knew which tools and parts were needed to fix the phone. Seidou appeared, declaring he would join them to protect Takabana. Nishi warned him not to cause trouble. Seidou said he would do whatever it took to survive. Nishi noticed Seidou's jealous glances at Rikudo and hoped he wouldn't act recklessly. Takabana asked if everyone was ready, then started the car. Nishi told her they were all counting on her. Sakura silently regretted going. Rikudo said they were set. They drove off. Back at the school, a student suggested they burn the bodies on the rooftop, as Rikudo had recommended. Yama, holding a wooden practice sword, angrily told her to stop talking about Rikudo and said he would deal with the corpses when they returned. He reminded everyone he was in charge. Meanwhile, in the city, the team drove through monster-infested streets. Creatures attacked as soon as they heard the engine. Takabana ran over one by accident, and Rikudo reassured her. Nishi, looking through the sunroof, said the car had been the right choice because the smaller monsters couldn't reach them. His relief faded when he saw a massive creature and told Takabana to change course. Sakura guided her back to a four-way intersection and told her to turn right. Rikudo said everyone was relying on her, while Seidou glared from the back seat. Through the sunroof, Nishi saw enormous flying monsters and wolf-like beasts eating people. He said it felt like the world had ended. Rikudo asked if there were survivors, and Nishi said none so far. The blonde guessed there might be people hiding elsewhere, and that they were unusual for being outside at all. Seidou suddenly told Takabana to stop. She obeyed and asked why. He pointed out a convenience store about 50 meters away and suggested they check for food. Sakura agreed. Rikudo noted they would also find supplies at their destination, but Seidou snapped at him. Seidou accused Rikudo of acting like the leader just because he fought monsters. Nishi defended him, and Sakura urged everyone to get along. Takabana scolded her boyfriend, who muttered under his breath. Nishi thought about the risks and said there were no perfect choices. They didn't even know if leaving the school had been the right decision, but now that they had, they needed to give it everything. He said he trusted his friends and wouldn't complain. Nishi said food was essential and they should take every opportunity to gather it. Everyone agreed. 5 minutes later, they reached Honolulu Coffee, and Seidou confirmed it was the place. Sakura warned them to be careful, and Nishi said they should leave if things felt wrong. Inside, the shelves were mostly empty, and Rikudo pointed out there were no monsters. Nishi thought others might have already taken the food. Rikudo found untouched canned goods, and they began collecting supplies. After about 15 minutes, they had a decent haul. Then Seidou heard a noise behind a door. They opened it, calling out, but found no ones. There was just a cardboard box that seemed to contain bread. The group stared at it in confusion. Seidou stepped forward and confirmed the box held bread. Excited by the discovery, he wanted to claim it immediately, but Rikudo told him to wait. Annoyed, Seidou asked what the problem was, insisting he was the one who found it. Rikudo said something felt wrong. He pointed out the bloodstains around the box and questioned if that didn't seem suspicious. Seidou brushed it off, asking what could possibly have happened. Rikudo admitted he didn't know, but pointed to strange writing on the floor. He had a bad feeling and warned everyone to stay away. In a mocking tone, Seidou claimed that even if they didn't take the box now, he would return later and grab it in secret to take the credit. Nishi tried to get his attention, but Seidou grabbed the box and shouted it was his. Suddenly, a large red eye appeared and fixed its gaze on him. Seidou froze in fear, dropped the box to the floor and screamed. The girls in the car heard the scream and grew anxious. Sakura told Takabana to duck down. Moments later, monstrous lizard-like beings appeared, carrying spears with severed heads on the tips. The girls stayed hidden inside the car. Inside the store, a monster with one large eye and 9 tentacles emerged, attacking the boys. Rikudo charged in with his steel pipe and struck it, while Seidou watched, irritated. Looking at the box, Rikudo realized the creature was a mimic, something he had only seen in games. Nishi called out that something was happening outside. The boys peeked out and saw one of the lizard creatures standing still, as if investigating. Nishi identified it as a lizard man and noted there were several of them. Deciding they couldn't take on 5, they stayed hidden and hoped the creatures would leave. One of the lizard men approached the car and smashed a window with its spear. Takabana screamed. Realizing the girls had been discovered, the boys rushed forward together except Seidou, who froze in terror. Sakura was dragged out of the car and tried to convince the monster to let her go by shouting that she was not worth eating. As things reached a critical moment, one of the monsters was suddenly struck down. Rikudo appeared, striking with his steel pipe, and he told Tabana to protect Sakura. If things went bad, she was to leave with Nishi and abandon him. Surrounded by 3 lizard men, Rikudo was cornered. Then an arrow struck one of them, bringing it down. Nishi, hidden, knew that if he was spotted, he would lose his advantage, and fighting 3 at once would be too much. Just as Rikudo feared it might be his end, a boy on the store roof threw a rock that hit one of the monsters. He kept throwing with all his strength, while Nishi fired arrows. Another boy with platinum hair appeared and used brass knuckles to take down another creature. Rikudo, seizing the moment, finished off the remaining lizard men. With the enemies defeated, Rikudo thanked one of the new boys for saving his life. The girls, relieved to see other survivors, ran over. Nishi noticed from their uniforms that the newcomers were from the same school. Remembering the area was dangerous, Nishi said they needed to leave quickly. The boy with green eyes suggested they come to his hideout and asked his platinum-haired friend Senpai if that was fine. Senpai didn't seem pleased but didn't refuse. Nishi admitted he thought they were finished back there. Rikudo said luck could still appear when you didn't give up. Tabana told everyone to get in the car, surprising the rock-throwing boy who didn't expect her to be the driver. After about 10 minutes, the strangers introduced themselves. The red-haired boy said he was Ice Tauta and his friend was Yamao Takeshi, called Senpai. Ice Tauta then pointed to their hideout, a large hotel called Hotel Love. The group was shocked, but Ice Tauta explained it was a smart refuge because it was far from crowds, meaning fewer phones from which monsters could appear. Seeing Nishi's expression, he insisted there was no bad blood between him and his friend. Nishi said that wasn't the problem and suggested exchanging information. Seidu seemed irritated and told them to do as they liked. Nishi told the others not to take his mood personally. Ice Tauta explained that he was returning from school when monsters attacked. Using his speed, he managed to escape but was eventually cornered. That was when Takeshi appeared and saved him. He praised Takeshi's strength and said he was the one who found the hotel. Nishi realized he had heard of Takeshi before, rumors of him being a violent delinquent involved with gangs, drugs, and even murder. Watching him now, those stories felt exaggerated, given the friendship between him and Ice Tauta. Ice Tauta continued, saying they had been searching for food when they met the group. Rikudo asked if they had left the warning near the box in the store, but they denied it. Embarrassed, Rikudo dropped the subject. As they walked deeper into the hotel, Nishi explained their own situation from the beginning. Ice Tauta was relieved to hear there were still people safe at the school. He asked if fixing the phone could help them call for rescue, but Nishi admitted the chances were slim. Rikudo then asked what Ice Tauta and Takeshi planned to do next. Sakura, still frustrated, said she had been forced to come. Takashi surprised Ice Tauta by saying he would join them. He promised he wouldn't hold them back and could act as a shield. Nishi said that would be a big help. Takashi then asked his friend what he wanted to do. Ice Tauta said he would go too, insisting he was a man who needed to take action. Rikudo told Nishi it was good they had stopped at the store, and Nishi agreed. Takashi, however, criticized their plan, saying the area had many people and therefore more monsters. He said they needed a proper entry plan and had to keep Sakura, the key player, safe at all costs. She was surprised by this. The others agreed they had been too hasty. Takashi said he wouldn't be involved in planning and would simply act as a soldier. They then began working on a final plan. Seidu was excluded and sulked in the corner. After the meeting, they returned to the car and made repeated trips, focusing on finding a safe route. Even with obstacles, they worked together to overcome them. After several days, they reached their destination. Rikudo remarked that rushing would have gotten them all killed. The girls felt relieved, and Sakura said it felt like centuries since she had been there. Ice Tauta's legs trembled with excitement, calling it the thrill of a warrior before battle. Rikudo told everyone to stay alert, and Nishi added that from here on they would face challenges as they came. Outside the school, flying monsters filled the air while others roamed the ground. One student said the survivors had been living on small pieces of bread. Sitting on the floor with his head in his hands, a boy in despair wondered how much longer they could keep going like this. 2 girls quietly worried about the others, saying they hadn't heard from them since they left. Inamoto, feeling hungry, approached the teacher, who was eating an entire loaf of bread. She politely asked if he could share more since everyone was starving. The teacher slammed his weapon on the ground and told her to forget it. Standing, he shouted about how precious food was now and ordered her to be quiet and obey. Takeda whispered angrily to his friend that while they were starving, Yama was stuffing himself. The girl tried again to reason with the teacher, warning they wouldn't survive until the others returned. The man said the group had probably already been killed by monsters. Inamoto protested that it was a cruel thing to say and reminded him that the others had gone out to help. With a dark look, Yama grabbed her by the waist. and he said that if she did something for him, he would give her special treatment. She screamed for him to stop, but he laughed and claimed he was just joking. Meanwhile, on the school roof, creatures devoured a pile of corpses. At the same time, Rikudo's group walked through an area that seemed empty of threats. Rikudo wondered aloud what it meant. Nishi said there must be a large, powerful creature nearby, something like a boss in a game, which kept smaller monsters away. Nishi asked why the monsters resembled those in video games. Rikudo said that at least naming them would be easier. Rikudo added that someone must know the names, and Nishi replied there might be a set of rules at work. Takeshi reminded everyone their goal came first. Later, they reached a floor full of electronics, tools, and chemicals. Sakura ran to the shelves, thrilled, and declared she could live there. They divided tasks. Rikudo asked Ice Tauta and Takabana to help Sakura, while Seidu and Nishi guarded them. Rikudo and Takeshi patrolled. Sakura examined devices, planning to replace the CPU in the broken phone with one she found. While patrolling, Rikudo discovered a note on a shelf that read, "Eliminate intruders." The handwriting matched the warning from the first store. Suddenly, footsteps echoed, and a massive stone creature with a glowing core appeared, announcing it had detected heat. Rikudo realized it was a golem. It charged at him, and he struck it. But the blow did nothing. The golem moved with surprising speed. Rikudo hit it again, but it wasn't enough. Just as it was about to land a powerful strike, Takeshi stepped in and delivered a crushing punch, knocking it down. The golem quickly rose again, unharmed. Takeshi, frustrated, said hitting the core should have worked. Rikudo suggested they search carefully for its weak point. Takeshi took the lead, telling Rikudo to follow his commands, and Rikudo agreed. The fight began with the platinum-haired boy skillfully dodging the golem's attacks and landing multiple punches. His partner, watching closely, admired his strength and wondered if this was some kind of boxing technique. He thought that even professional fighters rarely reached this level, but then grew worried when he noticed the monster was highly resistant to such blows. The golem struck Takeshi in the head, causing him to bleed. His friend realized the situation was dangerous, as they were losing their advantage. Rikudo suddenly understood the meaning of the warning note they had found earlier. He shouted for Takeshi to fall back. Rikudo then used all his strength to hit the golem's head with his steel pipe. The stone creature shattered completely, leaving Takeshi confused about what had just happened. The rest of the group ran over. Nishi asked what had happened to the pile of stones, and Rikudo explained it had been a golem. Nishi, shocked, asked if Rikudo had defeated it. Rikudo confirmed, saying he remembered from a game that the weak point was in the head. Nishi was thrilled, saying their journey felt more and more like a fantasy. Seidu tried to belittle the victory, suggesting it was just a small creature. But Takeshi disagreed. Takeshi praised Rikudo's ability to read movements and spot the letters on the monster's head, saying he could be trusted in battle. Rikudo thanked him. Ice Tauta also praised Takeshi and said he wanted Takeshi to trust him too, while Seidu looked annoyed. The bow wielder declared that with the enemy gone, they could return to work. But Rikudo, looking thoughtful, pointed out that the creature seemed too weak to be a true boss. At that moment, a large purple sphere rushed toward them at high speed. Sakura sensed danger, asking if the noise was getting closer. The sphere appeared at the top of the escalator, surprising everyone. Nishi wondered if it was another boulder, but Sakura pointed out they were inside a store, so that didn't make sense. Before Takabana could be hit, Rikudo pulled her out of harm's way. The sphere revealed a glowing purple eye. Then it stood up and transformed into a massive humanoid with the eye in the middle of its chest. Rikudo told Nishi that this one was definitely the boss. Sweating, Nishi muttered that this was bad news. The purple golem spoke the same words as the smaller one, declaring it would eliminate the intruders. It swung its massive arm, missing and smashing a hole in the ground. Rikudo noted that because of its size, hitting the letters on its head would be far more difficult. Nishi stepped forward, saying he would handle it. He fired arrows at the letters on its head, but they didn't even scratch the surface. Sakura, terrified, wondered if this was even fair. The golem roared, its chest glowing as it prepared to fire a purple energy beam. They sprinted in panic, and the monster unleashed its attack directly toward Rikudo. The beam struck the ground, leaving a huge burning hole. 4 of them managed to hide behind a wall, breathing heavily. Rikudo was shaken by the creature's power. Takabana checked on Nishi, but his injuries were severe. She worried about the others, but Rikudo said they needed to focus on what they could do right now. He suggested they head for the underground parking lot and regroup there if the others were safe. Seidu rejected the idea, yelling that they couldn't reach the stairs without being seen. Rikudo agreed, saying he wouldn't abandon his friend. The monster drew closer. Rikudo suddenly left cover and confronted it head-on. He shouted for the others to run for the stairs while he distracted it. He thought about the creature's behavior, realizing it reacted to heat and aggression. If they could distract it with a flare, they might all escape safely. Tachibana signaled she was ready to throw the flare, but Seidou interfered, knocking it away so it rolled down the stairs. The plan was ruined. Tachibana demanded to know why, and Seidou said the monster might have turned on them before the flare was thrown. The golem struck again, slamming Rikudo into a wall. Injured, Rikudo told them to stay put and take care of Nishi. He warned Seidou to protect Tachibana. Seidou cynically told them to leave Rikudo behind, which made Tachibana furious. She punched him in the face. Then she ran to help Rikudo. The golem began charging another attack. Rikudo thought about how he had been giving his all since that tragic day, but felt powerless in this moment. He remembered his late brother and admitted his brother had been right. Suddenly, Tachibana appeared and pulled him out of the beam's path just in time. They fell to the ground, and Rikudo scolded her for being reckless. She grabbed his collar, demanding to know how he could give up so easily. Her words triggered a memory of when, as children, he had saved her from bullies and never backed down. Realizing they were still alive, Rikudo stood again, steel pipe in hand, ready to fight. An arrow struck the monster. Looking back, they saw the group reunited, including Nishi, who appeared recovered. Rikudo and Tachibana were overjoyed. Ice Touter admitted he had been worried when they left them behind, and Takeshi apologized for the delay. Everyone prepared for a counterattack. Tachibana and Rikudo stood at the front, facing the monster. Rikudo struck it with his steel pipe. Nishi watched from nearby with another boy. The boy admitted he was considering retreat but hesitated. A loud noise drew attention. Small golems were climbing up from the lower floor. The noise grew louder, frightening Sakura, who called it a desperate situation. Nishi asked Rikudo what to do, warning that if this kept up they were finished. Rikudo told the bow wielder to keep firing at the same spot. Nishi called the monster a fool and said it wouldn't last much longer. Rikudo said he had to defeat it because he was still alive. The word alive made Sakura freeze. She called out to Rikudo and Nishi, saying she might be able to do something if given time. Sakura admitted they might not believe her, but she could defeat the monster. Rikudo encouraged her, promising to buy her time. Moved by his trust, Sakura began working, tears in her eyes. Rikudo called Nishi closer. A blonde boy asked if Sakura could really do it, and she said yes, because Rikudo trusted her. Sakura told Ice Touta to help the boys and asked him to protect the girls. The monster prepared to attack again. Sakura crouched and began mixing chemical potions. Tachibana noticed her trembling and asked if she was all right, but Sakura told her to be quiet. The monster lunged at Rikudo, who dodged. Nishi urged Sakura to hurry. She was almost done, adding the final ingredient and completing the mixture. She warned Tachibana never to handle chemicals lightly. The next step was to throw the potion at the monster's head. Tachibana asked how they could manage that. Realizing she hadn't thought of it, Sakura called herself an idiot. Ice Touta grabbed the vial, saying he could throw it because he was on the baseball team. The monster closed in fast. Nishi grew frustrated at how close it was getting. Then, energy began building up in the monster's chest for a powerful strike. Takeshi wondered if this was the end. Ice Touta arrived, saying it was a special delivery from Sakura, and hurled the vial with precision. Tachibana asked what Sakura had put in it. Sakura explained it was a chemical reaction. She had mixed manganate and sulfuric acid with glycerin, creating nitroglycerin. Before she finished explaining, a massive explosion threw everyone back. Smoke rose around the monster, which still stood. The baseball boy asked again about the explosion, and Sakura compared nitroglycerin to dynamite. Everyone stared at her with a mix of shock and exasperation, scolding her for not warning them first. From somewhere nearby, someone called out Sakura's name, so if you want to see what happens next, make sure to drop a like, subscribe to the channel, and ring the bell so you never miss the next chapter.